Hello, everybody, and welcome to this third in our series of preparatory pre-full moon meditations on the three keynotes that the Christ is said to emphasize on the days before the Gemini full moon. The keynote of love, the keynote of resurrection, and today the keynote of contact as it is understood in the hierarchical sense. Tomorrow there will be another pre-full moon webinar conducted by Francis Donald. It will be have many points of astrology in it, I imagine. And in the chat box in a little bit, or maybe even now, you'll be able to see what that URL is, what the link is for it. And you should have, if you are on the Morya Federation constant contact list, and I do encourage you to join that, you should have received information about that. And then on Friday, the actual full moon is going to occur at 1:09:30 in the afternoon, and Tuya will be leading that as a broadcast, and the link is also there in the chat box. So that will be with music and images, and it will include the exact moment of the Gemini full moon, towards which we are all striving and for which we are preparing. So it's a really important full moon, and at the Festival of Humanity, it is called the Festival of the Christ also, and the Festival of Goodwill. And Great Invocation Day, or World Invocation Day, is involved with that, and all over the world there will be the sounding of the great invocation, the great mantra of power and light, which is our most effective instrument, the Tibetan tells us, in preparing for the reappearance of the Christ and the externalization of the hierarchy. These days, when so much seems to be going amiss in the outer world, we who know something about meditation and something about occultism and its proper training, we have to work inwardly and powerfully and subjectively. And just because we are quiet in that way does not mean we cannot be effective. Look at our relationship with the masters. Probably few of us have had the experience of the master walking in the room as he did for Alice Bailey, as she recounts in her unfinished autobiography, and yet behind the scenes and through their writings and through their presence, they are immensely powerful, as to which we can attest. And so, in our own lesser way, we have to learn to be similarly powerful with respect to humanity and the condition of its consciousness, which at the present time is largely unbalanced. But as the Tibetan said, the heart of man is sound if oft asleep. So we can help to awaken that heart, awaken that soul through our subjective presence. And I suppose if we had any other kind of priority going for the next 8 years or so, we better set it to the side, because our responsibility is very great. And perhaps because there will be sufficient disciples really concentrated this time, as unfortunately they were not sufficiently before World War II, we can avoid World War III. And we must, even though in a way it's being fought out psychologically and mentally on the inner planes, and we can't help but be participating in that. So the pressure is on and the burden is heavy, and I trust that we will be equal to it. I think about the labor in Gemini, where the last of his 5 labors saw Hercules helping Atlas from the burden of the world that he was carrying, and it rolled off the shoulders of Atlas and onto his, and at the same time the golden apples of the Hesperides, the apples of wisdom that he had been so strenuously searching for, rolled into his hand. So I think we know what we must do, and then it's just a question of doing it. Okay, so welcome everybody, and very happy that you're here and attending from, the various continents, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and the Americas. Welcome. Very happy that you are with us, and let's get to work. So it's important to disidentify with the outer human being with whom we so frequently identify. Really, we are the soul in incarnation. We are the observing consciousness. And as we pull back, in the old Raja Yoga sense, we know we have a body, but we are not that body. That we have our sentient feeling states, our desires, our attractions, our repulsions, but those are states of force, and we are not them. We have our many thoughts and the process of thinking and all that, but it is an instrument, and behind it we stand. Just get the sense of being the observer, standing behind the more obvious human being that we so often mistakenly think we are. And there, internally, we can meet each other as we withdraw further onto the plane of soul, which in this preliminary case is the higher mind, the plane of higher mind. And we imagine that we are entering a world of light, spiritual light, spiritual love, spiritual sacrificial will, and that we can touch each other wherever we may be in terms of light and love and the power of spiritual sacrificial will. And so it's as if we are at one with the members of the new group of world servers, at one in soul, and with the men and women of Goodwill all over the world. We don't know them personally, but in the soul there is that connection. There is that unity. There is that contact. Whoever they may be, they are really parts of ourself, and we of their self, and it's one great self or soul. And in fact, all of humanity, whether in the body or out of the body, is included in this kind of unitive contact. There's really no one from whom we are separate or separated when we think soul to soul. The soul has no evil in it. It may have insufficiencies, a lack of fullness in the causal body, the egoic lotus, but not evil per se, not separativeness per se. So it's one soul. And as the ancient second ray mantra tells us at last, naught is but me. Think of that. It's such an amazing statement. Everything we disidentified from, and it is necessary thus to disidentify in order to find the true monadic observer, we have to re-identify with. So in fact, we include everything, everybody, every sentient being, and what are there but sentient beings? Even metals and the minerals have a certain intelligent sentiency. So just adopt that inclusive attitude which spans the globe and then goes interiorly to the other fields which are subtler, and beings are found there too. And in fact, naught is but me. Not the personal me, of course, but the greater being behind it all. Every day a little time should be spent at least to identify in this way, somehow. And we're conducting this meditation largely on the plane of mind, the middle subplane of the lower of the mental plane, the fourth. It's that pivot point between soul and personality. And there, from that point, we can work at building our rainbow bridge, our antikarana, if we have enough resource, enough accumulated energy, power, at that middlemost point. So all of us, we invite in the distinctive energies of the 12 petals of the egoic lotus, not all of which are open for us yet, but the general energy is there, from the knowledge petals into that point of tension on the mental plane, from the love petals, from the sacrifice petals, and even to some extent from the synthesis petals surrounding the jewel, the synthesis petals which begin to unfold at every successive initiation, until by the fourth initiation they have sprung open completely. So some degree of synthesis also enters into our life. It goes beyond inclusiveness. It's worth meditating upon the relationship between inclusiveness and synthesis. And into the jewel in the lotus. It's a sevenfold jewel, we are told, paradoxically with 8 radiations. And we bring in the aspects of the will into our point of tension on the mental plane. The will to initiate, ray 1. The will to unify, ray 2. The will to evolve, ray 3. The will to harmonize, ray 4. The will to act, ray 5. The will to cause, ray 6. And the will to express, ray 7. So there on the 4th level of the mental plane, our point of tension is getting stronger. And we're imagining this beautiful rainbow bridge with all the colors of the rainbow extending from our astral sentient body into the realm of intuition on the Buddhic plane. And it passes through the energies we have gathered, and it organizes them according to the pure reason of the intuition. And certain colors will stand out in our bridge, especially the soul ray color and the personality ray color. Red, ray 1, indigo, ray 2, green, ray 3, yellow, ray 4, orange, ray 5, rose or light blue, ray 6, and violet, ray 7. But for our purposes, the bridge is largely colored in a group sense by the indigo color, the great synthetic color of our solar system, and even of our planet when it's acting as a soul. And so we will project a vivid line of light all the way from our point of tension of reorganized energies on the mental plane into the spiritual triad, imaginatively at least, and into the monad. Of course, in reality, we don't reach that far yet, but there will be a response, and eventually, through imagination, the reality will dawn. So we'll sound outwardly the Om, and inwardly we use that word of power. For the second ray, I see the greatest light, the great unfettered light of Shambhala, in this case allied to Taurus, the mother of illumination. I see the greatest light inwardly. And pause for a moment, realize what you've done. You invited the presence of the triad and the monad into your consciousness, and you are approaching. You in the lesser sense and you in the higher sense are responding. The Father in heaven, our highest aspect, responds, as does its personal expression, the spiritual triad. And we're connected with the great thoughts, with intuitions, with the power of spiritual will, and eventually with the realization of pure being. So keep that bridge in your consciousness. We're building it. It takes years, probably lives. But DK has given us the method, and we trust that. And so we're connecting with that realm of reality which is in the cosmic ethers, where we really begin to live, down here on the 18 lower subplanes. It's all the past. It's all the energy left over, which has to be redeemed. But on the cosmic ethers, there are the redeeming forces. And there we meet the customary consciousness of the masters. And we salute them, we offer our salutations, our solidarity, our gratitude for all they've done, for their relationship, their redemptive relationship with us. It's not worship, it's not devotion, but it is something else. The will to stand with them as they seek to see the divine plan expressed. And I hope each and every one of us is animated by that will. And so, salutations to the Buddha, the Lord of Light and the Lord of Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all masters and the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutation to the triangle of masters with whom we most closely work in our particular approach, Master Morya, Master Kuthumi, Master Chwalkul. Salutations to the Master Morya, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master Kuthumi, whose ashram has the greatest responsibility in preparing men's minds and hearts for the externalization of the hierarchy and the reappearance of the Christ. Om. Salutations to the Master Jwalkul, who has given us the blue books and many aspects of the secret doctrine, and who trains aspirants for the first and second initiations, and now even for the third. Om. Salutations to your own Master as you know him to be or conceive him to be. Om. Salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the Chohans and Masters on all the rays. May we learn truly to cooperate with them. Om. So here we have our rainbow bridge imagined. We have the great ray of love wisdom with its word of power. I see the greatest light. We are increasingly soul-infused beings, and we have expressed our solidarity with the elder brothers and their intention to bring the divine plan into expression lawfully and in order, with correct timing. We've offered our cooperation. And so now, even further, as a group, we raise our thoughts to Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. And with deepest reverence and identified as the group's soul, we seek to attune with the presence of Sanat Kumara, standing at the very center of Shambhala, the Lord of the world, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of Venusian love, the youth of endless summers, a great emanation of the planetary Logos. As a group, we seek just a little, because that is all that could be allowed to us, to attune with his presence. And a long, internal, silent Om is what we sound imagining that we are imbued with his energy, however slight that pervasion may be. So that in fact, in our lives and in our group life, we seek to do the will of God, to understand it, to understand his purpose. Of course, understanding the plan comes first, but maybe just a little bit of the divine purpose will filter through to us. We know that our planet is the base of the spine center in our solar system, and that will tell us something about its first-ray monadic power and its function in relation to our solar logos. It's a powerful planet, especially potentially. And the planetary logos through the Lord of the world is working through all phases of this planet. At this time, of course, we seek to be immersed in the consciousness of the indigo sun. That's where we meet the consciousness of Master DK, at least imaginatively, because he is a great expert in all of these energies, planetary, zodiacal, the energies of the great of hierarchies. So we're reaching out for a subtle contact, as if supported by his mind and consciousness. We're reaching out to the energies available at this time: Mercury, Venus, Earth, the orthodox, esoteric, and hierarchical rulers of Gemini, respectively. The opposites will be revealed, their interplay will be promoted, their harmonization and unification will develop. And as far as the Earth goes, it is the field of service. And upon this field, we as a group and the various initiates and masters will express these energies of Gemini, Mercury, and Venus in this field of service we call the Earth. And without that triangle, if you think of it, Gemini, Mercury, Venus, the redemption of the Earth would be a very uncertain project. But in those three lie the energies necessary for individualization, for apprehension of the plan and purpose, and for the uniting of the pairs of opposites that is so necessary upon our planet, because the pairs of opposites are raging upon our planet and they must be united. So in Gemini, we learn how to bring the opposites together. Within our solar system, ruled by a God of love and wisdom, our solar logos. Think of that. No matter what we are, in terms of our rays, we all have our monadic home within the sun, or within the solar logos. We are units of love wisdom when we participate in this solar system. Other destinies may lie before us, but for now and for a long time, here we are, learning to express the consuming love of the Solar Logos, no matter what our ray may be. So it's the love wisdom of the soul nature of the Solar Logos, and maybe eventually his monadic nature, which must direct and guide us as we participate in this system. Later, other paths may open up, and according to our monadic ray and monadic destiny, we will travel. But for now, we are units of love and wisdom, no matter what our ray may be. And this is the time when our Solar Logos, so related to Gemini, these two are to be considered. With Gemini giving that power, the light of interplay. As the Tibetan tells us, it's a line of light beams, revealing that which opposes, or the basic duality of manifestation, the relationship of spirit and of form, spirit, matter, soul, personality, form, the light of relationship, conscious light of relationship, unifying the poles. So at these moments, these days, we try to feel the higher part of this Gemini energy. Gemini, which is called the head of the cosmic Christ. Of course, there are many cosmic Christs, and I think we may be speaking here of the energy coming from the heart in the head center, of the one about whom naught may be said. Some amazing cosmological relationships here, but for us, for our purposes, we learn to unify the opposites, and we have them. We begin with our soul and personality. Unify, harmonize, at one. And we move on eventually to our monad at one pole and the soul-infused personality at another. We draw these parts into harmonious, unified relationship and eventually into oneness. I serve the one, as it is told in esoteric astrology, those marvelous tabulations, page 332, 333, you'll go there, you'll see it. I serve myself, I serve my brother, but at last I serve the one. And that oneness has to be held in mind. And all diversity is seen within it. Unified within it, yes, and even more than that. All diversity is the oneness itself. So here is the time when the forces of reconstruction under Gemini are guided by the forces of restoration under Aries and the forces of enlightenment under Taurus, and we are rebuilding the world. We've been told, rebuild the shrine of man's living. In the last century, some has occurred, some has not. We have much to do. But we are builders, working in the light, seeing relationship, knowing its unity, knowing its eventual, essential oneness, and we represent, finally, the One. So let us be subtle enough, perceptive enough to see the unity in all diversity and to see the One behind all diversity. The great exemplars that we celebrate these days, the Buddha and the Christ, they had such power of identification that they could see these things. They live in that world of unity, that world of oneness, and we are slowly learning to do that. The basic recognition for us at this time, I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. The personality and even the egoic lotus, they are the other self. And I, in my position, as the true, ineradicable being that I am, the monad, from that point of view, I recognize the other self, the other selves. And compared to the waxing in the light, which occurs in my essence, I speak for all of us, growing and glowing, the other selves wane in comparison. And yet, of course, they become infused and they become one with that which recognizes. So divide yourself from the obvious self at first. It is not the real you. And yet mysteriously it is. And the day of reclamation will come through identification, and then we will know, not is, but me. As the Christ and the Buddha know these things, they represent the East and the West, the two hemispheres, the union, the spiritual union of these hemispheres. It doesn't exist yet, but each has what the other needs. And it's all working out. The rays of the Orient, the third personality and the fourth soul, the rays of the Occident, the fourth personality and the second soul, rays 2, 3, and 4. And in these days, when the fourth ray will become so powerful, very shortly, that bridge using the fourth ray will be created between the Orient and the Occident. And as DK tells us, that occultism will move towards the West under the second ray, soul, of the Occident. But for now, we are learning to unify the hemispheres within ourself as well. The hemispheres of the brain and the different aspects, soul and personality. Unifications are required, and as we study and live according to the principles of these brothers in the light, Gemini brothers and the Christ and the Buddha, we will be successful. So intimate, so powerful is their relationship that the Christ preaches, we are told, at the Gemini full moon. Leadbeater says in the Pali language, the last sermon of the Buddha. And we think about the contents of that last sermon as we prepare, as these days move towards the full moon. So we will ponder now. We pondered the body's cravings, we pondered sensation, and now what do we ponder? The difficulties of the psychological nature. And the Buddha advises us what the disciple must do. And so also when he, the disciple, thinks or reasons or feels, let him so regard his thought that being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, he may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the craving due to ideas or to reasoning or to feeling. So we see the psychological nature addressed here. It has many thoughts, many ideas, as it were, many feelings, many desires, and they lead so often to grief. But if we can, as the Buddha, the lion was, being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, we can overcome this craving, this intense desire, which are due to the ideas which descend, or to reasoning in the mind, or to feeling in the astral body. See, the Buddha is speaking from the triad. In fact, after his enlightenment, he's speaking from the monad. It's an entirely higher perspective. He touched the cosmic mental plane. Just imagine that. The place where the causal body of our earth is found, where even the causal body of our solar logos, on the higher subplanes of the cosmic mental plane. And he had already been for 2,500 years the head of the hierarchy. The true Buddha, not the Lord Gautama. We might say the Buddha is to Gautama as Christ is to Jesus. So strenuous, thoughtful, mindful, we overcome these psychological factors which want to hold us prisoners in the three lower worlds. So let each of us, and let us as a group, affirm that in yourself, in ourselves, we can be strenuous, thoughtful, mindful, in the overcoming of the grief which arises from the craving due to ideas, not the true ideas, of course, more like thoughts. True ideas come from the Buddhic level. It's a different thing. They represent pure reason, but so often we call our thoughts ideas due to ideas or to reasoning or to feeling we can do this. And using the energies of the time, we resolve that we will. We will do this. Overcoming the body, overcoming sensations, overcoming the psychological nature. We can do this. We will do this. And so we offer, as we prepare to look at the entire last sermon of the Buddha, we offer our profound understanding gratitude to the Buddha for all he has done really to illuminate humanity and to save humanity from its own desire nature, even as our own non-sacred planetary logos has to be saved from his desire nature. He's struggling with personality. So we are very grateful, very grateful. And together we offer our gratitude to the great Lord, presently in Shambhala, but cooperating intensively with the Christ. And now we refocus our attention on the Christ with heartfelt attentiveness, attending to his words as we are told. He is sounding by himself at first the great invocation. And so, though the language would be different, it would be easily translated due to the occult law into our own language, and we can imagine him speaking in our own language. Let's imagine the Christ, head of the hierarchy, sounding the great invocation. Now listening again inwardly, we imagine the Christ and the entire hierarchy assembled with him, to be sounding the third stanza of the great invocation, the stanza of will. So we imagine and we absorb the effect. Contemplating the deep significance of these words. What a power it must be to have the entire hierarchy, at least those members of the hierarchy that are working with humanity, to sound this day by day, stanza by stanza, or verse by verse with the Christ. Each adding considerable power, love, light, understanding to this sounding. And when this has occurred within our imaginative consciousness, we imagine, and it's still a long way away, but we imagine the will of God pervading humanity and the planet, and we see the human race empowered by the will to good. Imagine the will to good expressing as goodwill, and eventually our planet beginning to express its monad of will and power, which lies behind its emerging second ray soul. And in the triangles one day, and maybe for some now, the will to good will be expressed in the triangles. Not only light, not only goodwill and love, but the will to good. So may this will to good empower all initiates and disciples and aspirants, and may it work out as goodwill in the hearts and minds of all humanity. That day is coming. After seeing the many things that don't work, we will know that goodwill will work. And the more goodwill there is, the closer the hierarchy comes, is able to come. And so the third keynote will make sense, which, as Master DK describes it, is the keynote of contact, of a closer relation between the Christ and his people, and between hierarchy and humanity. And even, of course, between Shambhala and hierarchy, and Shambhala and humanity. All of these are undertaken by Mercury, with the addition of Jupiter in relation to Gemini. The keynote of contact, of a closer relation, imagine, between the Christ and his people, and between hierarchy and humanity. This is what we're working for. Maybe as today unfolds, we as representatives of hierarchy, even a little, can establish that kind of contact with others, which is really hierarchical and which is a reflection of this kind of merging, this kind of fusion that hierarchy seeks in relation to humanity. May our contacts be of this nature. And under these Geminian energies, let's learn to do that. How different it would be if the human beings on our planet, coming into ever closer relationship with the Christ in his hierarchy, could express and would express goodwill to each other. It's not how international relationships are conducted now. It's more realpolitik. It's the search for power, the exaltation of the ego. It's not goodwill, except maybe in a few instances. But just imagine the world swept by that kind of contact in which goodwill predominates. Goodwill can transform the world, and we have to feed it, we disciples, aspirants and disciples, by understanding something of the will to good which can empower goodwill. So on this day of contact, let's make sure we are as close to the will to good as we can be, and that our actions, our words, our thoughts express goodwill. And in order for this to take place, really, the Antikarana has to work, so that the higher parts of our nature can contact the lower. So, we know our task, and inwardly and with gratitude we affirm our solidarity with the Buddha and the Christ and the assembled hierarchy. We don't worry about the time equation. They will assemble, they will act. Time can be compressed, whether past, whether future. We tune in on this, and in our own way we merge with the Buddha, with the Christ, with the assembled hierarchy, and we bless the world, especially seeking that the will to good and goodwill will pervade human interaction. To be truly good, think of it. It's not some paltry thing about behaving. It's to be imbued with this will to good and to comprehend the completeness of goodness, kind of a second ray expression of the first ray. To be truly good is a great achievement, and we learn by doing. We express, and thus we learn. And so we pause for a moment. We appreciate the illumined, loving energies of the constellation Gemini. We feel the will to good, the will to goodness pouring through us. The plan defines goodness, the purpose defines goodness. The plan defines goodness in time and space, and the purpose defines goodness beyond time and space. The good, the will to good, goodwill. And so we'll close here as if in union with the Christ and the hierarchy and all the initiates and the members of the new group of world servers, the disciples, the aspirants, will sound together the third stanza of the great invocation, or call it a verse if we will, sensing that it is the will of God, which is love, really, that Shambhala, the Christ, the hierarchy, and humanity must express, and thus they may come into true and real contact, and may thereby cooperate with the redemption of our planet. And so, together, followed by the sacred word, from the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. Thank you, everyone. Keep these things in mind today, the day of contact, and may our contacts be imbued by the kinds of energies which hopefully we have been contacting. Tomorrow, Francis Donald at the same time will do the final pre-full moon webinar in the mode that we usually do. And then the next day, starting at 11:30 GMT, Tuya will do the exact moment broadcast of the full moon. I'll be traveling up in the air at those times on my way back to Europe, but I'll be tuning in with you, meditating with you, and thank you very much for your presence. We'll get this on Makara as soon as we can, and maybe you can use it for various purposes or recommend it to your friends if they want to meditate along these lines. Our meditation can make a big difference. As students of occultism, we know that, and so our job is clear before us. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love. We'll see you, talk to you, be with you, and have a very good day or evening, whatever it is, as we move towards the Gemini full moon. 1:09 and 30 seconds GMT on the 9th, Friday the 9th. Bye-bye.